Hey everybody, it's Mike Sullivan with Born to Shine. Today we have an awesome guest. His name is Nick Polyak, and he is the superintendent over at Leyden High School, which is a really cool district in Franklin Park, Illinois. And they have two campuses. One is east, one is west. And Nick, thank you so much, man, for making time to be with us today.
No, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
And what was your journey like becoming the superintendent? Because that's a really big job, big responsibility. You have all those people looking up to you. If you're open to share that journey, what was it like?
Sure. And I think there are a couple of pieces to my story that are a little different than some others. For example, I've never been a building principal. I've never been an assistant superintendent. So my journey started, I was a high school math teacher right out of college. Taught math. My plan was to be a math teacher and a head soccer coach. That was my life plan at that point. But I coached soccer, I coached tennis. And then after a short time in the classroom, I had an opportunity to become a dean of students. Our school district was growing and expanding, so they needed people. So I got tapped to become a dean. I did that for a year. And then they said, hey, would you go over and be an assistant principal for us at this other school? So then I was an assistant principal for 4 years. And then they said, the guy in charge of data analysis and professional development is retiring. Would you go into central office and do that? And so I went in and did data analysis in PD for a couple of years. I got my doctorate at that time and my superintendent's. At that point, my superintendent was in his 70s and signed a new 5-year contract. And so I said, well, this isn't happening anytime soon. And so I applied for some superintendent jobs, and I got a job in central Illinois down near Peoria in a little town called Chillicothe.
Oh, cool.
And my wife and I and our 4 kids, we just moved there. And I became the superintendent there for 4 years. Amazing community. And then I had the opportunity to come back north to the Chicago suburbs to where I am now at Leyden. And I've been here for the past 10 years. I'll say too, one of the unique parts of my pathway is during my time as an administrator in my first district, I became a school board member also of the town that I lived in.
Oh, cool.
So I've got that kind of 4 years of actually sitting on a school board with a superintendent before I ever became a superintendent.
That's amazing. I bet did that help considerably, watching that dynamic?
Yeah, I learned so much from him, so much about who I wanted to be as a leader and as a man. I learned from watching him in the community and as a school leader. And I also got to bargain a contract from the board side of the table, which is a whole different perspective of understanding community resources and how they're allocated within a school district. And so that was a big learning experience for me.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is really different. That's super cool. And I had no idea that you loved math and soccer and tennis. I'm horrible at all three. Terrible at math. My brother was a math major. Tennis, yeah, I'm pathetic. And soccer, that's a lot of running. I admire you. That's cool.
I went to the college I went to Augustana College in Rock Island, Illinois, and I was recruited there by the tennis coach. Showed up, walked on and played soccer, never played tennis. Most important thing I found there was my wife. We met the first day on campus and I proposed the day before we graduated. So
oh, wow, cool.
That was my biggest college takeaway, was my wife.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. How cool is that? And then, the second question is a little bit different. And when I was a kiddo in 3rd grade, I started getting bullied relentlessly, and then it really amplified the anxiety that I already had within me, and the depression. It just started to explode. And I'm wondering, when you were a student, anywhere from K through 12, was there anything that you may have struggled with?
I think, Mike, every kid struggles with something. When I look back at my youth, I'm the baby of 5 kids in my family, but I was kind of that accidental 5th kid that came 5 years later that they weren't expecting. And when I was young, my parents got divorced. And so ended up living with my mom, eventually my mom and my stepdad. But it meant that I popped around from some school to school. And specifically, when I transitioned from junior high to high school, the high school I went to, there were only 2 kids from my middle school that went there. So I
Mm.
really showed up at a high school knowing nobody.
Yeah.
Um, and nobody's confident at that age, and nobody has an identity at that age. I
Mm.
remember very distinctly after the first semester. This is this is going to sound like a strange thing to say as a bad thing, but the first report cards came out, and it came back with class ranking and GPA and all that.
Mhm.
And so here I am, a freshman. I don't know anybody there, and my first report card came back, and I was ranked first in
Wow.
my freshman class.
Mm.
And like super awesome, proud of my grades, proud of all that.
Yeah.
But what it created for me was an identity at the school of being a nerd, a
Oh.
dork,
Mm.
right? And that became who I was, or at
Mm.
least how I perceived that people thought I was.
Yeah.
And so, you go through the next 3.5 years, I don't get invited to the parties with the popular kids.
Mm.
I played soccer and tennis back then. Well, at our school, football, baseball, those were the big sports. I didn't
Yeah.
play those sports.
Yeah.
And so my identity came through my academics, which, and I don't want to make it sound like I had this awful high school experience. I had great friends, but I just remember being so self-conscious
Mm.
about wanting good grades, but also resenting the fact that they became my identity.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I think a little bit later in life when I could kind of see the blessing that all ended up to be for me. But in the moment, I really struggled with who I was and how people saw me.
I am so grateful, Nick, that you shared that. That was beautiful. And it's no wonder you're the superintendent, because authenticity and vulnerability is the true sign of a true leader. Because what you just shared, there are so many students that can relate to that, especially the ones that are in AP classes, right, that are really, really bright and they're just excelling academically, and maybe they have that little struggle. And just hearing you say that is just so empowering, and gives any of the students that are listening now hope, to any of the students. So that's amazing. That little tug of war, right, that we all kind of have, whatever it is. And and it's cool that you saw the blessing in that, in your gifted intellect later in life. What was it, maybe for a listener, if there's a student out there, high school student that's feeling that way, and they're like, I feel just like that. How did he overcome it? Or how did he, are there any tips that you could share with any students listening or watching that helped you?
Well, I think first thing I want to say, I go back to what was the original second part of your question about like who
Mhm.
helped me.
Right.
Um, I was at a Catholic high school. I went to Joliet Catholic.
Awesome.
If you ever seen the movie Rudy?
Oh, yeah.
You know, so that's where I went to high school.
Cool.
And my locker for 4 years was outside a physics teacher's room named Father Ray Foster. So he's a Carmelite priest,
Awesome.
physics teacher there, and really kind of took me under his wing. I
Mm.
mean, I saw him multiple times every day, and he would just check on me.
Yeah.
And I ended up, taking his class. And not that physics was the most exciting class in the world, but he brought such passion. He's really the person that spurred me to want to be an educator. It was
Mm.
kind of like, if this guy, a priest, can come to school every day and make physics fun, I
Mhm.
want to do that. I can make math fun.
Totally.
But uh, I think the friends that I had, that we all kind of bonded around being that stereotype, um, and we just became each other's support network. And so, like, the biggest advice for kids is always find your niche.
Mhm.
Schools have something for everybody,
Right.
right? So I mean, there's a place to get involved anywhere and everywhere. And unfortunately, and I learned this when I was an assistant principal, because I had this job where I was in charge of discipline in the school.
Mhm.
I was in charge of student activities.
Mm.
And the kids that I interacted with were never the same. The
Mm.
kids that were in trouble weren't in activities, and the kids that were in activities never got in trouble.
Mm.
And so what I've learned over the years is, if you don't get engaged, you get attracted to the other kids that don't get engaged.
Right.
And oftentimes bad things follow.
Right.
If you can plug yourself in to where you have a peer group, where you have more adults that you're accountable to and groups that you're accountable to, success is going to follow.
Yeah.
It's just find your people, find your thing.
Absolutely love that. That's brilliant. All of that is phenomenal advice. And it's so true, because isolation is so dangerous. for all of us at any age. And that's so great to get, like you said, get dialed in. There's something for everyone, every student out there. If it's an academics group, if it's a musical group, if it's a chess club, a sports club, whatever it is, to just get involved in that, a drama club where they can have like-minded, common interests, and they support each other, like your friends, you said, supported you. And God bless that father that was taking you under his wing. Your locker was by him, and that's super cool. That's definitely divine intervention there. So that's super cool. This one is, what's working over at Leyden High School for your kiddos, for your high school students, supporting their emotional and mental health? Are there things that are working well, or things you'd like to see more of?
Yeah, I'm very, very proud of our people. We've got, top to bottom, an amazing Board of Education. This place has ridiculous consistency in its teaching staff, support staff, administration, its school board. The tenure, people like me on the national stage, we last in these jobs less than 3 years. The turnover is amazing when it comes to school superintendents. I'm the 5th superintendent here in 70 years.
Wow.
Right, since 1950, 52, I'm only the 5th superintendent.
That's great.
And I've been here 10 years, and 6 of the 7 board members who hired me back then are still here and will be here tonight for a school board meeting.
Wow.
And so, when you have that kind of consistent leadership, you can do really amazing things because there's shared trust and positive inertia in the organization. So one of the things we did, to get to your question, is we've implemented a new schedule that has a period in the day we call Eagle Time. We are the Leyden Eagles. And Eagle Time features a number of things. We've got a 4-year looping advisory. So we've got 3,500 kids, but every kid belongs to about 22 kid advisory. And they have one adult who's with them for their entire 4 years. And
That's
they meet
incredible.
twice a week.
Wow.
So big school, make it small and personal.
Yeah.
Help them find their people, their support network. There's a homegrown curriculum within that advisory that tracks the kids through their 4 years, from freshman year of how do I adjust to being here, how do I get involved, to senior year, how do I apply for colleges or find career pathways, post-second, after high school. And so that adult is walking them through that curriculum that's, personally written to help guide them through their high school career. That happens 2 days a week. The other 2 days a week, we have seminars where kids are going to math supports, writing supports, social emotional supports,
Awesome.
Groups with our social workers. I look at what the national numbers are for student to counselor ratios, social worker to student ratios, and we blow them out of the water. For a 2-building school district, we employ 6 full-time social workers.
Great.
We have a therapy dog who's here every day that our folks can tap into if you're having a bad day or if there's something happening. We bring the dog to the situation.
Yeah.
So there's always more to do, right? But I feel like we're doing some really powerful things for our kids.
What's the dog's name? Everyone's going to want to know that.
It's Penny, and Penny has her own social media sites you can follow. And
what type of dog is Penny? Is she like a lab or something? What is she?
Yeah, she's a lab.
Those are great. It's so amazing how bringing a dog in just diffuses all of the anger, whatever it is, right away. It kind of disarms everyone, and they have them. I think I've heard that at a handful of schools, so it makes you guys unique. But then even in places like retirement homes or where people are just feeling pain of any kind, somehow the dog comes in and things get even just a little better.
You have to smile when you see the dog coming up. The dog's picture is in the yearbook. And all the credit goes to one of our counselors, Patty Muldoon, who is Penny's owner and handler.
Okay.
And so Patty and Penny are together every time. You don't see one without the other.
Thank you, Patty and Penny. That's amazing. That's so good. So if any of the viewers now are superintendents or teachers or someone like Patty, and you have a dog like Penny, maybe bring the little pooch to school. That's so cool. And I love how you guys are taking your 3,500 students, having Eagle Time. Is that what it's called? Eagle Time. And you're taking that big school because I went to a school about the same size. I think there were like 4,000 kids. It was Stevenson in Lincolnshire, huge. I think they're up to 6,000. What it's like a college campus. So it felt huge. And I remember feeling completely lost the whole time I was there. So you guys are taking away that feeling of being alone and lost and taking 3,500 kids down into groups of 22. Is that
Yep.
what? And then twice a week they meet with someone?
Correct.
How do you pair up this? Is it a teacher with those 22 kids? And how do you all do that? If we dive into that a little more, if that's okay.
For sure. Yeah, it's a teacher. And so we we've kind of evenly divided our teaching staff so that the groups can stay consistent throughout the 4 years.
Cool.
Teachers can request if they prefer to do a seminar. So if you provide 2 days a week a math seminar for students for targeted skills that kids need help with, or a writing seminar or an SEL seminar, then you don't do an advisory. So every certified teacher who works here does one or the other. They either lead an advisory 2 days a week with a group of kids, or they lead a seminar 2 days a week.
Wow, that's awesome. And for the seminar, the one they have the 22 kids in a little huddle, like a sports team, right? Like a soccer team or a football team, and they're all together getting really close, almost one-on-one support, and that 22 kids, right? With the one adult. And if for the seminar, is it for the 22 kids, or can larger groups come in? Can they?
No, kids can come in and out of those.
Awesome.
So based on needs. And if you don't have a seminar, you get kind of a free release in the building for 35 minutes twice a week. So all of our freshmen start in a seminar called Freshmen on Track.
Cool.
So they're accounted for all 4 days a week, whether they're an advisory or Freshmen on Track. But then as they show proficiency into second semester, they can opt out of that, and they can go sit in the cafeteria and work on homework. They can sit there and talk to their friends or play Uno or whatever they need to slow their day down.
Right.
Because we don't often let kids do that. We go period to period, bell to bell to bell. And so Eagle time, especially when you don't need the seminar, you get a little extra time to just kind of slow down.
Yeah. I love that. That's incredible, Nick. That's just such a cool, smart, it's just a really wise setup, and it's great for your kids because it's giving them some power to make choices, right? They can choose to go if they're feeling, oh, things are kind of rough. I'm going to go to that SEL class, or, you know, my math scores are dropping. I didn't understand that. What is it? FOIL? What? I don't even know what it is. That I struggled. So I would have been in the math seminar 24/7. I would have needed that help. But it's cool that you're empowering your students to have that ability to choose what they need, or if they just need that time to slow down, like you're saying. That's really cool. And are there any final thoughts or anything on your heart that you want to share with anyone that's watching this and listening?
You know, I was thinking about that, and I've been in education for 24 years now, and superintendenting, if that's a verb, for the last 14 of those. And one of my buddies and I, we write together and present together, and we've kind of come around to this philosophy, and we'll talk to groups of people and say, you know, the work that you do, whatever your leadership role is it more of a sprint or more of a marathon? You know, we'll have that conversation with people, and you know, people will say things like, well, sometimes it's a sprint, but I know in the long run it's a marathon, that it takes a while to get there. And then we challenge people to take a step back at more of a 30,000 foot view. If you can see the racetrack, what it all comes down to is all of it's actually a relay race. You know, I'm holding this baton right now that's called the Superintendent of Leyden, and my job is to run as fast and hard as I can to improve upon whatever our place in this race was when I got it, and to hand it off someday safely to the next person so they can keep going, because I'm part of something bigger than me. As much as I feel like I'm in these sprint moments or even these marathon moments, I'm part of something even bigger. And so it speaks to, you know, what do you want your legacy to be? You know, and if part of my legacy was that I got to be here to help implement Eagle Time, and that there's going to be kids who benefit from that decades after I'm gone, like that's the cool perspective I'm starting to have after 24 years that I didn't have earlier in my career. That we're all part of something bigger than us.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's true for that applies to everyone, everywhere.
Mhm.
that everything we're doing is more than just us, and we're all here to help each other. We all need each other. We're all interdependent and interconnected. And yeah, that's incredible. I love that metaphor of passing the baton, and that's incredible. Nick, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It was a real pleasure. And I know everyone that's watching is gonna love your story too. So thanks for being with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Mike. This was awesome.